we are looking at Dynasty trade targets. First, we're going to take a look at Dynasty trade targets for contending teams. So this is if you are looking to make a championship run in your Dynasty leagues, you want some advice on a trade, be sure to drop it in the comments below, and we'll give you our advice on these trades and kind of talk about what the trade capital should be in these. So let's kick this off. Dave, you've got a target for people that are looking to win their championship next year in Dynasty leagues.
Yeah. Now, I might start off with a spicy one right here, and I know I'm going to get some pushback from you guys, but I think that if you're contending, and I'm talking super flex leagues here, if you're in a one quarterback league, you could probably do better. But in super flex leagues, I am making a strong push to get Russell Wilson on my teams this offseason. Now, typically when I talk about why you should or shouldn't trade for a player, I try to have a really data-based approach, but it's admittedly kind of hard with Russell Wilson. The one thing I was able to find, though, is if you look at his career touchdown rate, it is at 6.6%. His career low was 2016, where he threw for 3.8%. Last year, though, 3.3% touchdown rate. That is half of what he's done throughout his career. You look at his interception rate. That is 1.8% in interception rate throughout his career. 2.3% last year was the highest that we have seen since his rookie season. It's hard for me to look at those numbers and not see them as outliers. This was the first time in his career where he had a new team and a new head coach. And I think there were just some growing pains there. I talk about the interception rate. I talked about the touchdown rate, but his PFF offensive grade and his passing grade says exactly the same. He had career lows in offensive and passing grades last year as well. And he looked bad, but I don't think that he just fell off the age cliff at 34 years old. 34 isn't that old for a quarterback. And we see some of these hyper efficient guys perform into their mid and late 30s with advancements in modern medicine and taking care of themselves and all of that. Now, the Broncos brought in Sean Payton, and he has a history of highlighting his best players, whether it was Jimmy Graham or Alvin Kamara. He's going to build around the best weapons and make Russ Wilson's job just a little bit easier. Mike McGlinchey and Ben Powers led this free agency offensive line class, and Denver committed $140 million to those two guys. Now, they're both a little bit better in the run game, but I don't think that is a bad thing. You know, if this team wants to lean on the run, that's just going to help Russ be a little bit more efficient. They also brought in Samaje Perine, and his best attributes are as a pass catcher. Now, historically, when we think about Russell Wilson, we think of him scrambling, running all over the place, picking up 500, 600 yards on the ground. He's probably not doing that at this point in his career. So having a safety valve like Perine that he can check down to should help him a little bit as well. If you look at how his value has changed, before the season kicked off last year, he was the QB9. It dipped as low as QB 26 in December. So I think that if he shows any signs of life with Sean Payton this season, he's going to rebound right up to that back end QB1 value. Right now, you can get him for a late first. And the best case scenario is that he starts giving you QB1 production that we have grown to see over the last 8 years. Worst case scenario is obviously that you lose the value, but you're only looking at a late first. So it's not like it's going to be completely damaging to you. Russ Wilson was a QB1 for 8 consecutive years. In those 8 years, 4 of those finishes were top 3. I don't think that he has suddenly just forgotten how to play football, and I'm trying to acquire him for cheap where I can.
Yeah, there's something to be said about these, let's call them older quarterbacks, where you start to get worried. Are they falling off that age cliff? And we always talk about that with like tight end and running backs. It's so rare, but quarterbacks, you tend to see them just get older and they can still play just fine, like you mentioned. Is there anything here that worries you? Because there's all the reports about like Denver putting all of their literally every wide receiver on the trade block. Do you get a little bit worried that maybe they're going to think of like kind of just pushing Russ back into that facilitator role and kind of trying to focus more on the run? And is that something that bothers you?
Not especially, because that's kind of what his role was in Seattle when he was still giving us elite fantasy production. His strength has always been in his efficiency. He's never been a volume guy. You know, Russ Wilson's never going to come out and throw 600 times in a year, but he has been hyper efficient his entire career. So them trying to move some of these guys, I think they just have too much talent, as crazy as that sounds. But when you got Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, Greg Dulcich, and now you got Perine coming out of the backfield as well, that is a lot of pass catchers, and they're probably looking to allocate some of that value elsewhere. So if they can flip Jerry Jeudy and get a first round pick and use that to address another positional need, I don't think it's a terrible idea. They could move Sutton, Jeudy, or Dulcich even and still have a very good pass catching room. So I'm not really all that concerned. Like I said, he had 8 consecutive top 10 seasons. 4 of those 8 were top 3 seasons, and that was in that perceived facilitator role. So even if he does go back to playing that, his efficiency should prop him up to be a good fantasy asset.
All right, Joey, you went a bit of a different direction here. Not quarterback and not old. You went with Tony Pollard. So talk to us about why Tony Pollard becomes such a great trade target for a contending team.
Yeah, so like Tony Pollard just feels like one of those players right now where all the dominoes, is that a way to say that all the dominoes just seem to be falling his way? I mean, Dallas just used a franchise tag on him. You'll allow it? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Dallas just used a franchise tag on him. They cut Zeke on Wednesday, and Malik Davis is their only backup right now. So Dallas, they could address the running back in the draft or maybe through free agency a little bit. But as far as 2023, it seems like it belongs to Pollard. He's an unrestricted free agent in 2024. But last season, 16 games, 250 total touches. He averaged 5.1 yards a carry and 9.5 yards per reception. He was a beast. Career high 12 touchdowns. It's very likely Pollard next season is going to hit his career highs in both carries and receptions. He's a top 10 back for me in 2023. I absolutely love him.
Yeah, Tony Pollard is hashtag good at football. But yeah, I think something you mentioned, right, is that like there is the possibility that the Dallas Cowboys could add another running back here, and it would be the most Jerry Jones things in the world to add Bijan Robinson to this backfield via the draft. Or maybe is there a really good running back on the University of Oakland Lightning Bears? Do they have a good running back?
I don't even know if they even have a football team, to be honest with you.
They should probably get one.
I believe they had a March Madness run in like 2014. And like that's where they got their popularity from.
Oh man, I have to double check now. Is it actually the Lightning Bears, or do they have a real mascot name?
I think it's just the Bears, but this bear has lightning. I've mentioned it once. I'll mention it again.
They missed such a golden opportunity for the Lightning Bears. All right, so back to Tony Pollard. What a transition. Does the recovery from that broken fibula, right? Because he got injured last year, it was late in the year. Does that worry you in terms of his workload? I know that they don't really have a whole lot invested in him because it's the franchise tag, but we don't know how he's going to perform this year coming off this broken fibula. So does that worry you in terms of workload or performance, anything like that?
I'm not so worried about it. The injury experts that are out there, I have a joke in here that says, I believe they're called doctors. I'll say it because I think it's funny.
The jokes work better when you explain them. I
think so. I've always thought that. They've been saying 4 to 6 months for the injury, and the injury occurred around, I think it was mid-January. I think it was January the 23rd. So that's about 7 months he has to recover from it. So I would imagine the Cowboys just kind of don't put him out much in the preseason, kind of guard him a little bit. But then once the season rolls around, if he's ready to go, like, I just wheels up for Pollard.
Yeah, and he's only 26 years old too, and that age is usually young enough that they can rebound from an injury. He's only missed 4 games in his 4-year career too. I mean, this guy has been pretty healthy. He doesn't have that dreaded injury prone label, so I'm not too concerned about the injury either. I'm expecting him to be full go by week 1.
Yeah, the only thing that just scares me is Jerry Jones is a crazy person. That's it. That's my only fear of any Cowboys
Bijan Robinson would make too much sense for them to ship Zeke out and then just immediately bring on Bijan. That is the fear for sure.
It's so worrisome. It's so worrisome. All right,
so let's get to go back and
yeah, we're gonna have to clip this up and shipping Tony Pollard right to the Lightning Bears if that happens. All right, so let's get to our last trade target here for a contending dynasty team. And my guy that I picked here, Najee Harris, running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think it just comes down to a couple simple things. Is that one, he's really one of the last remaining what we call bell cow backs. Okay, he was 6th in total touches among running backs, and that was in a year where he really didn't catch as many passes as he did as a rookie, and things kind of changed for him. But you go ahead and you look at the Football Guys snap count tool over on footballguys.com, and you take a look at this. Najee had 65% of the running back snaps for his team, a crazy 73% of the running back carries. Like, how often do we look at these teams and say, oh, it's going to be a 60-40 split, 50-50 split, and it's just become so common that to see a running back of his talent, his age, and his pedigree have 73% of the running back carries, that to me says a lot about what the kind of volume that they're willing to give him. And Pittsburgh actually became a more run heavy team in 2022. Back in 2021, it was 36% run rate for them. That bumped up to 45%. And even towards the end of the season, when the Steelers started going on a winning streak, it bumped up to 52%. So I think this looks like a team that is trying to really create an identity as a running team, do you really want to put the ball in Kenny Pickett's hands that often to try to win games? And I think what a lot of people remember is how poorly Najee Harris started last year. He started off horrible. Weeks 1 through 9, he was running back 29 points per game, averaging less than 11 points per game in PPR. And the first 5 weeks of Steelers football was just really bad. They started 1-4. Mitchell Trubisky was finally taken out of the lineup. Kenny Pickett goes in and just gets obliterated in his first game against the Buffalo Bills. And then all of a sudden, things change. Najee Harris gets healthy. He had a Liz Frank sprain in his foot. He had to wear a metal plate in his cleat. That gets removed. All of a sudden, Steelers are relying on him a bit more. He's playing better, and the Steelers are winning from weeks 10 through 17. He was the RB9 in points per game, getting you just over 15 PPR points per game. And it kind of just lends to show that the Steelers really did make that identity shift as the season went on. And now it just seems like this is something they're going to continue. They signed former Eagles guard Isaac Seumalo, who is one of the better run blocking guards in the league. And the case for Najee, at least I believe, is, he was a running back 8 in 2021, and then a kind of a really, subpar running back 21 in 2022. That was confusing to say, but 22, the running back 21 in 2022, I believe, should be his floor. To me, like, that's an absolute worst situation with a rookie quarterback, awful offensive line, and injuries, and that's essentially the price you're able to get him for right now. He's got a track record of being a bell cow running back. He's got the red zone usage multiple years in a row and a team tendency now to run the ball under Mike Tomlin and Matt Canada. I think the offense gets better with Kenny Pickett in year 2, thus more scoring opportunities. Right now, he's being drafted as the RB14 in best ball. I've seen his dynasty rank as low as RB16. That's a pretty good indicator of value when you take a look at ADP versus, maybe trade value. And I think the floor for him in 2023 is around that top 12, top 15 running back because of the type of volume he gets with a realistic jump. And you guys can tell me if I'm crazy, but I think there's realistically an avenue where he makes a jump back into the top 8 of running backs. And you look at some of these guys, it's Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, Saquon Barkley, Ken Walker, Bijan. You can make arguments for Breece Hall and a couple of other guys, but Josh Jacobs too. Like, you can make arguments that some of those guys won't be there next season as top 8 running backs. Like, I don't know how likely it is. But guys, I ran a thread of Twitter polls, and I got to ask you the question because Twitter is never wrong about anything. Okay, so let's say this is a Dynasty League, Superflex League. What would you be willing to trade for Najee Harris if you were a contender? I'll go Dave first.
What I'd give up for him, I'd hopefully be looking to move in a late first. Like, if I can trade something in that 108 to 112 range. I don't know if people are selling for quite that cheap, though. You might have to pay up a little bit more.
Joey, where are you at?
Yeah, I'm kind of where Dave's at. I would like to think that like a 108, a 107 would get it done, but I don't. People are really guarding these picks this year, so.
Yeah, and so that's interesting because I'll take a look at it right here. Where everything kind of seemed to break even was the rookie Superflex pick 107. That seems to be the adequate value for Najee Harris, and I'm trading that. I'll trade the 10. I have a 107. I'm just not a contender, but I would, if I'm a contender, I would trade the 107 for Najee Harris because this is a guy that's going to be giving you top, RB1 potential for your season going up and contending for that championship. And what else are you going to get for that? Will Levis, Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnston? Like, there's not a whole lot of potential of some other good players falling to you there. So yeah, I really like Najee Harris going into next season if you are contending for a dynasty championship.
And one thing you didn't even mention, Alfredo, and I don't want to steal your thunder here, but he was injured last year. And I don't know why everybody just seems to forget about that. He was dealing with a foot injury and an ankle injury. And
I mentioned it, David. I mentioned it. I said he had a metal plate in his cleat. That shows how much.
Cleat. There you go. Yeah, exactly.
I start talking and Dave just tunes out. He mutes his headphones. Thanks, man.
But really, I mean, that so many people are going to cite the efficiency metrics and his inability to break tackles and his rushing yards over expectation. But that was very much so when he was injured. And then at the end of the year, he looked great once he seemed to be over that injury. So I'm completely with you, Alfredo. Agree with your point on the injury. Didn't mean to add to it.
It's okay. I know that when I talk, you don't listen. That's fine. You're just too busy looking at Joey's awesome Lightning Bears hat. For more Dynasty content just like this, click the video to the left of me and make sure you're subscribed to the Football Guys YouTube channel.